Hello and welcome to this latest tutorial. It's called Realistic Architectural Studies, and it's going to be hopefully the first part in a multi-part series all about the place and role of architecture within concept design and what we can learn from that. And so this first video is really going to be about how we can learn from architecture in the real world and how it can inform our artistic design sensibilities. So this first part really is going to be divided into kind of three sections. The first section is going to be a bit about looking at references and analyzing them, and I'm going to try to kind of visualize the thought process that's going on in my head when I'm trying to dissect and think about how to approach a certain architectural design that I want to translate into a 3D model and into an idea. The second part of this video is going to deal with the application of what we've just analyzed, how to translate it into 3D and what to look out for, how best to model, what things to think about, how to be efficient, what materials to look for. And the last section is going to be about just presentation, really. Now you have your design, you feel like you're done with it. How can we present it in a nice way? And that's really all that's going to be covered. So let's get started. For this episode. I've selected a few images that I want to analyze, a few ideas that I want to execute. And it's really driven by just a few items, a few guidelines, which I think are also going to be very important for you to follow when you're just starting out with this. If you're already very proficient, then you probably don't. You can kind of do whatever you want. But let's say you're at the beginning of this journey, and you just want to get your feet wet in terms of architecture. So I think it really comes down to choosing something that you like, maybe visually, and that something you're also maybe a little bit familiar with, and something maybe that you can find a lot of reference for in case you can't go out and take photos yourself, or something that you have seen a lot of times and you kind of know well. It should also be maybe something that is not too difficult. I mean, you can eventually get into, I don't know, something like Calatrava and do that if you want. But I think in the beginning, it's maybe not the ideal material to practice just in the beginning. So maybe take something that is something you can understand, you can break down, it's not too complicated, and you can kind of practice the things of like scale and proportions and materials, and you can kind of get an idea of what it is without making insanely complex blueprints and plan views and whatever. So I mean, for myself, I choose these Japanese storefront images because here I can really easily kind of get an idea of proportions and the materials and everything. So, but again, you can just choose whatever you feel like, whatever makes sense for you, whatever you like looking at. Maybe you can just go out and take a few pictures of a house nearby, or some kind of building or some kind of different storefront wherever you live, and work with that. So I've chosen a few, and I think I wanna kind of do two different buildings, and the approach for both is going to be a bit. Not the approach is not going to be different, but the idea behind it is going to be a bit different. So for one building, I kind of want to take a regular kind of building, something that is not like overly crazy designed, even though I mean this one is actually quite interesting, but something that falls maybe in the category of just like, okay, it's like an average building. You would just walk past and you would not necessarily notice it. Or something like this, where it's like, okay, this is not like done by some super famous Zaha Hadid architect style, whatever. It's just a simple building. You would just walk past and you wouldn't maybe even not even look up. And the point being that I think a lot of things in concept art are maybe too over designed. And sometimes don't have the connection to the real world. And I think it's good to notice kind of just average things and how they're laid out and how they work together and little details, and kind of like the how used it looks, how dirty it is, how just average things look like, and which elements we can take from that to make our designs look more lived in, look more natural. And then the other side, the other building that I want to do is maybe something that's a bit more designed, so that you really have something done by an architect. Because in the end, what we work on as concept artists is still about doing something that looks nice, doing something that looks cool. So we can't only learn from the average kind of things. We also need to take note of things that are well done, that have good proportions, that have good design, and have to learn from them. So that's going to be part of that's going to be the other side of it, where we take something that is interesting, that is different, that stands out, and see what we can learn from that. So, and I'm going to try to kind of visualize and break down what's going on in my head, because not always, like I don't necessarily go into these images and actually mark them up every time I do this. A lot of the process of breaking these designs down and analyzing how I will build them, and which elements to take from which and how to put them together happens automatically, and that is something that happens in your brain the more often you do this and the more you repeat this. There's a certain like type of automation that happens, or something that you do unconsciously, and you evaluate the images based on certain factors. And again, the more you do it, the more natural it will feel to you. But maybe it's a good exercise to kind of visualize that for myself, and also for you to kind of use it as a crutch in the beginning to kind of really know what you're looking for, and analyze how these forms and shapes really look like, and how these proportions need to be in order to look good. And so that's what we're going to do in the beginning. So I've chosen a variety of images, and you can see that they really it's just really basic buildings. But I mean, there's a lot of things, I think, even in these that we can kind of get out of. That we can get a lot of detail, a lot of information out of these, and analyze really what makes them interesting, what makes them unique, and what makes them so good for this exercise. So let's maybe start with this one. So the things that I'm looking for, right? So if I take like a markup here, maybe use a slightly stronger color. So there's some really interesting things going on in this area here, which is, I guess, the awning that comes out here, but it looks like a really interesting mechanism. But what I'm looking for is more like, so we have this area here, which is, of course, the entrance with a sliding door, with multiple sliding doors. They're all stacked together probably. And what I'm looking for is like, okay, we have a difference in material from here to here. So we have the white wall that's been painted here. We have a bit of like a in certain areas, we don't have it everywhere, like a lot of broken off paint. Like we have a little bit here, we have a little bit here, we have a lot more in the bottom here where maybe there's it's more exposed to water or I don't know, some kind of other forms of weathering. So you get these kind of points of abrasion only in certain areas, not everywhere. It wouldn't be like here and then nicely evenly distributed. It wouldn't happen like that. You just need it at a certain area. Down here is a little bit of wood, and then we have this little step here that seems to be kind of an afterthought, because I guess this one was too high for people to comfortably step on. So they built this thing here, and it's not. It's maybe this one is level because the road is slightly going down. And then there's some other stuff on here. I don't know if this is temporarily put on the floor or if this is actually part of the step. There's a bit of a rain gutter that we can see here. We have a nice used material here for the ground. And then little details here, like this really thin part here. That kind of maybe there's like some kind of metal part under it to kind of close off the top section here. We have a bit of the brick structure looking through, which is also really, really nice little detail. And then we have kind of, which is interesting, this going around the vent. And then we actually, there's if you look at it closely, you have like this wooden frame structure around the painted white surface, and then we have like maybe like a power outlet here or something, like a light here. But these are actually not as important, these things here. It's more about the materials and the proportions here, and also how thick this one is compared to this one. And again, this was maybe not necessarily planned, but it's just that's the way it is, and it like kind of looks comfortable. It doesn't look like you don't think twice about it. It's just like, oh, this is not like, if it was like this thick, it would maybe be different. Or if these would be, if number 1, number 2 1 and 2 would be like the same width, it would maybe look slightly awkward. But this one seems to be about 1/3 of this one. So there's a comfortable ratio going on here that maybe nobody intended, but just looks good to us. If you look at something else, for example, this one here, this is really nice. So you get these the front, which is kind of this white paneling, which is quite interesting because we have different kinds of paneling going on. So we have these thin, long ones, and then we have these thicker, shorter ones, which gives us a nice difference in rhythm here. And this one kind of wraps around here, and this one wraps around even further. And there's this little bit of an edge here that kind of captures the light and gives us a little bit of shadow. Then we have a really grimy looking vent here, a little like pipes going around, cables. And then we have this different material here, which gives us again a nice contrast. So we have these kind of I don't know what they are, metal panels, some kind of plastic panels. Then we have the stone tiles, which it's again, it's not one surface, but it's several. It looks like several blocks attached to the structure of the house, or made up of it. These kind of like concrete looking panels with a white ledge on top. And the glass here, which is kind of dirty and reflects the light that comes from the left, and then this metal frame that indicates that this part here can slide over here, and all these little things that we need to take note of. And then there's like maybe some kind of pipe even connected here, or it's maybe hanging in the air. I don't know what it does there. And then cables again, a different kind of pipe. These are probably the connections to the aircon that go inside the building to connect to a unit inside, which is interesting. And then some kind of makeshift kind of support here, which is also very cool. Again, everything just kind of happened, right? It just kind of was put together without anybody thinking like, oh, this needs to be nice, or this needs to be good, and thought out, right? It's like, oh, this needs to be this high. It just kind of happened over the years, and that's something we need to, I think it is good to capture in your designs, these kind of little details, so that it doesn't look overly designed, where it doesn't need to be designed, but it just kind of like looks natural. Other things to notice, of course, the height and the scale of things. So she's probably like a very little lady. So if we have like somebody 6 foot tall, will probably be like this, and then they can comfortably go inside here. Then maybe the door is like this tall, and there's like some part on top that doesn't open, and so everything needs to be laid out comfortably so that this person can read the electricity meter. You can access the mailbox. You can water the plants, all these kind of things, right? You can put something on the shelf here. And all of these things need to be kind of falling into place when considering scale. In terms of the structure of this, I mean, it's fairly simple, right? So you have maybe a block here, and then you have another block here with a little bit of a ledge here and here. And then here it kind of goes inside a bit and then goes down. So it's very simple in terms of the structure, right? But we need to really take note of all these little things. We have the little step here, and kind of think about how you want to build it out. If you go to something more, let's have a look at this guy. So if you actually look at the structure here, so if we want to break this down and build this facade here, I'm thinking actually of having taking this, exchanging the facade, and have the side of the building look like this, and then the front is this. Just because I can't see the front here. So we have a couple of things here, right? We have this part in the bottom, which looks like a little concrete ledge or stone, some kind of natural tile material. We have these rectangles here, and I should probably draw it on the new layer. So we have this part here, which is probably similar to this one and this one. So these kind of like rectangles. Then we have the ledge in the bottom, which is kind of like a step up. And then we have a thinner one here, and then the two big shutters, and here's a door frame, which probably I'll just take a photo and put it in there. It doesn't have to be this door because I can't see it, and it has like this little piece on top here, and then glass on top, glass here. And then we have this top part, which consists of several pieces again. And we have this piece here, which will be duplicated a couple of times, and which is also the same as probably up here. So I can again just duplicate it. We have this part here, which is about this tall, and then it repeats again and repeats again and repeats again, and the same on the other side. So we can again duplicate that and make our life easy. And then we have the main part really of the building, which is, if you zoom in, which is this part here. So what we need to do is again, it's a cube or a rectangle, and then it goes it probably goes something like this, depending on, I mean, looking at the how the light and the shadows fall, that there's an inner frame where the glass sits in, and then this kind of like metal or plastic here, and then a little gap, and then this goes here. And the way I imagine it, and again, we're looking at these little cues of like where the light catches on the edge, so that if you look at it from side view, it probably has a little bit of rounding, just a tiny little bit, and then This is the front, and it has a little bit of a bevel here, and then it probably goes something like really subtly inside, and then it goes inside again for the frame, and it goes inside again for the glass, and then of course there's like a part like this, and then on the inside it probably looks, I don't know, something like this. But it doesn't really matter. We don't really have to concern ourselves with the inside right now, because for this exercise we're not going to see that. And here we can kind of see like some a mechanism to open the window, and here we can actually see the window open, so it kind of like folds outward. You can kind of see these little things, but they're not necessarily make or break. It doesn't really impact, I think, the design that much, if we add these little hinges or we don't add them. So that's kind of how I imagine it to be. One of the things I always try to focus on with these architectural things is that the geometry doesn't need to be insanely intricate, crazy detailed, lots of ins and outs, and kind of like the typical kind of concept art look, where there's a lot of emphasis on I don't know how funky the geometry is. But I think for this kind of stuff, and to make it believable, it is really more about, the geometry is quite simple, but it actually depends on the proportions. It depends on the materials and the contrast within the materials. I mean, the glass to the metal, to the tiles, to shiny, to how the material feels, how well it's described, so that anybody can understand what this material is. And that's something I think is quite important. With anything, like no matter if it's like crazy sci-fi or if it's realistic or historical, I think the description of the material is incredibly important, and that you can get an idea of like how would that feel when you touch it. And so we don't need to like make crazy kind of crazy intricate detailed things with the geometry. We need to focus more on the proportions and the feel of it. So if we look at this piece here, there's again, it's even simpler. If we look at the bottom part here, really it's this frame that frames the entrance, and then it goes a bit inside here, and then there's the glass door for the entrance, and then there's like a wood paneled area. There's probably like a security camera here. And really that's it. And here this part stands out a little bit. And then there's a white material here, a kind of blackish stone probably here, maybe concrete, maybe something else. And then there's this really interesting glass facade, which this one actually doesn't have a frame. It feels like it's just glass. And then they have like a little bit of reinforcements here and here at the thirds, and then it's all made up of glass bricks. For this example, it's actually glass material that has been poured into that looks like a really like regular kind of bricks, and then they're in this interlocking pattern. We don't have to do necessarily this. We can also have this other facade from a store in Ginza in Tokyo, actually the Hermes brand, which is a fantastic building if you can ever make it there. And they have all these like bigger bricks, and then they have there's some kind of structure around the bricks to hold it together. But it looks incredibly interesting when it's at night, when it's lit up, and you can really get a hint of what the structure inside looks like. And there's some kind of bump on the glass itself that kind of causes a lot of this refraction and causes it to be not just clear, but kind of diffuses it a little bit. So maybe we can combine these ideas. So to make something slightly different. And then there's this kind of structure on the bottom here, which could be a hint at how this is put together, a bit of insight, and then how it transitions into the pavement, the ground, and here for the street where the cars go. So there's a lot going on in this very simple image, and maybe we can take something like that, right, and combine that, and let's see how we can execute that. And in the back is a tree. Actually, there's an atrium which you can see here with the opening in front, and then just behind the tree the building starts, the living space, I mean. And then there's some other stuff that we don't really know what it is, but so you can see the skylight, the shadow on the wall that is filtered through the tree and gives interesting patterns. The difference in materials again is very, very interesting. But again, this is very considered. This is very deliberate. Whereas some of the other stuff we looked at is very haphazard and organically grown. And I think these are two very interesting approaches that I think we as concept artists both need to learn and see what we can gather out of it. So I think this was a lot of again, very dry thinking and kind of figuring out what you want to do. So let's have a quick look at the task list for this first part, and then we can wrap this up. So for the first exercise, I think it's good to just for yourself choose a general topic. Like I said, it's about finding something that you're maybe familiar with, that you maybe even can go out and take pictures of in different angles, different sides of the building, and something that is not too intricate, something that's not too crazy, and where you go like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? This is too complicated. It's not the main idea to do something incredibly detailed and intricate right at the beginning. Maybe it's better to start off with something simple, and get a feel for materials and proportions and scale and all these things, and collect it and organize your reference. You can use PureRef, or you can use Photoshop. You can or you don't use anything at all. You just use your Explorer or Finder or whatever. Just have a very small selection, I think, of curated images that will help you in this task. Excuse me. Again, you can do it like I did, where I take something more natural looking, more haphazard, and something that is more considered, more done by maybe some architect with that looks very interesting and intricate. Or you can just do one or the other, depending on what you feel like. And then go through the references, just like I showed you, figure out the different parts that will make it up. Again, you don't need to go crazy with an analysis and a 3-step program. I don't know. You can just look at it and just kind of in your mind kind of figure out how you would put this together, which different parts you need, and draw little sketches either in Photoshop next to your images or in your sketchbook, pen and paper, and just kind of clarify for yourself how you would approach this in 3D, because I mean that's our way of doing things here, that we want to jump into 3D to help us understand these spaces and these structures better, because I think it's one thing to paint these, to draw these with pen and paper, or paint them in Photoshop, but I think it's a different thing to really visualize these things in 3D for these study exercise. Try to do that. Do it as many times as you need, and then don't overthink it though, right? Don't overthink it. Just have kind of like a little bit of a mind map in your brain on how you want to do this, and then as a next step, we're going to jump into 3D and actually bring these things to life. Now we're in Blender, and we want to build out our little building here. I'll start with this one, maybe jump around. So I'll just set up the regular kind of Blender. using 2912 at this point, but of course it's going to work with anything like 29, 292, 293, whatever you want to use. So there's no plugins or nothing that I'm using here. Just in terms of the setup, as usual, I start with a character here. I always start with that because for scale, for setting the scene, it's highly recommended that you never start a scene without a character. We have the standard cube, which is 2 by 2 meters, I think. Yeah, 2 by 2. And then we have the plane here. It's 24 by 24. It doesn't matter. It's just a ground plane. And here on the side, I have opened a new tab with the image editor and loaded in my little image here that I'm going to work from. So I don't usually do that because I have another monitor next to me where I can always look at the reference that I'm using. But for the sake of this tutorial and so you just can see everything in one screen, I put the image here. So let's see, just like before we broke down these parts, we can actually start with modeling this building. So I'm just going to start with the front and just dive right in. In terms of the size, in terms of the scale and which thing to start with, it doesn't really matter. It's up to you. I'm going to start with, let's say, the window, because it's like the biggest part here. So I just kind of want to, I'm not going to measure. I'm just kind of eyeballing because, I mean, I don't necessarily need to copy it one to one. I can have liberties. I'm not limited to this image, right? If I feel like I want to make the windows bigger, smaller in terms of subtle changes or the curvature here, I want to make that different. Don't feel like you're a slave to the image, but just do whatever you think feels good. So in terms of the size, I think this is appropriate. Maybe a bit wider, and I can also get out of camera view here with a 0. So I have this cube here. I also don't need this light actually. This is from the standard scene. So I have this. Then I have to think a little bit how I want to do that. All the bevels I probably want to apply at the end. So let me move into edit mode, get rid of the back. So I have this, press I for an inset. And then I have to kind of see how that matches on here. Probably something like this. Again, your guess is as good as mine. I don't have to be super precise here. I need to move this in a little bit, just subtly. I don't need to do too much, I think. Just so there's really a bit of a relief here on the wall. And then I can, with E, extrude it in. And then do another inset. This time it can be proportionate. Kind of like this. And then another extrude for the window. Maybe not as thick. And then that looks okay. And so now I need to actually another little thing I want to do is should have maybe done this just to have a little bit of a frame here. And another thing which would probably be nice, and it's probably something we only see in close-up, but if we add with Control R another edge loop here and another edge loop here, and I select these two and do a extrude faces along normals and just have a bit of I'll hide these So it feels more like this piece was actually, you can't see it with the current lighting, but so this part is like inset a little bit, so you don't have this. So it just feels more, it's more manufactured, like the metal is actually behind the wall and the glass is behind the metal frame, and that gives it a better feeling. So now we can actually start with the beveling, because we kind of have everything set here. So we can also, what we can do is, though, we can define our materials. So we can just call the overall material wall, because otherwise later it will be too cumbersome to select all the different materials with too many bevels. So I'll define another material, say plus, call it, I don't know, metal. Assign it, and that one is going to be glass. Okay, so now we have everything set up, and let's select all these here, but actually not all of them, but because if we do it like this and now hit Control B, then you see that the edges up here are also going to be beveled, and that's not something we want. So so we need to actually deselect these guys here. I'll deselect these two. Okay, and now we can do the same thing again, but there's actually something selected in the back. That's not what I want. Oh. Let's get rid of all of these. Okay, with the scroll wheel I can adjust the amount of subdivisions here. So if the curvature, by the way, looks off, then you probably need to hit Control A to reset rotation and scale, just so it makes proportionate, so it makes the right curvature. Excuse me. And that's fine. We don't need to follow this 100%. I mean, if you want to, it has probably a bit of a smaller curvature. And that is fine. So as a next step, we probably want to take care of these guys here. Maybe even this one. Let's see. We don't need as much. Just a subtle curvature here. Maybe set it to smooth and normals auto smooth. Okay, but this one here doesn't. There's not enough geometry here. That becomes a bit tricky. So maybe we'll change that and just do the bevel here. And then for this one, let's see, does it always break? Yeah, it's probably not a good idea to do it here, but it's all right. It's not gonna make or break it. We have this little lip here that's gonna be more than enough, I think, for the kind of detail level that we're going for. So now we have this part here, and I mean, you can make the building as high or as low as you want, but trying to kind of learn from this part, let's use the amount of rows and columns that we have here. So if we go in our modifier, we can make an array, and just need to make sure that I always reset rotation and scale. Yep, it's fine. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, we have 8 in that direction. We can also rotate it. You can have it any way you want. But the thing here is that you can see there's a little bit of a gap. And we want to, of course, introduce that, because it will feel very different when you have these pieces together or if you have them separated. So maybe a relative offset of 1.01. I mean, the relative offset depends on the size of your object. That's why it's relative. So you need to play around with that. It might not be exactly the same value, but I think that is fine. So we have that, and then we need another array for the height, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll do another array, say count 4. Oops. Factor 1 in the z-axis. Well, not 1, but we want also a gap here. So let's see if we can. You see now the gap is a bit higher. So we need to maybe put it at 1.005, and then I think it'll work. So now we have that. We need kind of have the rest of the structure, but we can make our life a bit easier, and we just take this guy here, duplicate it, press P for separation based on selection. Then we have this guy. We can select it and extrude it, but of course we only need about this high. We don't need the array in the z-axis. Okay, let's get rid of that. We can put the origin into the geometry with right click and then kind of play around with it. It doesn't have to be exact. It's for sure not exact here. So it's not high enough. If I look at it here, let's increase it a bit. And like I said before, like here we really want to take note of the proportions, right? We're not here to design the craziest thing. We're here to learn from what we see here. So we'll duplicate that just with Control D and put that on top here. So now it's getting there very quickly. So now I want to establish kind of the base here. So what does the building sit on? We have this little like granite, concrete, whatever ledge it is, the bottom here that the building sits on. But maybe that's just something to help us here. I don't necessarily need that. Let's take this guy and make a quick column out of it. And then we can kind of put that here. It doesn't necessarily need to line up 100%. There's that thing about 3D, in 3D everything looking too perfect. And we really don't want that. We really want it to look nice and organic, and not nice and organic, but like natural and not like overly like down to the millimeter fitted and everything like that. It's going to make it look really sterile and boring. So we need to allow for this part on the side here, which we can actually build right now. I'll take this part again and take it out of here. I want to separate that again because it's a different part. I actually need I want to make a repetition in Z axis. It also has a few parts here, maybe like 4. So that is fine. I'll extend that here. And I want to have a bit of a tiny bit of a gap in here, but I need to make it a lot smaller. So I think that is kind of okay. So we have this part. I want to set the origin to geometry. So this is kind of okay. Let's see if that makes sense here. That's fine. It can even be a tiny bit higher on the roof. Just a little bit. Yeah. And then I can copy that over, Control D. So I have this one here now. This guy goes here. It can be, we don't really know how deep it is, if it's really just a square footprint or if it's actually elongated towards in terms of depth. Let's see if the size of the human makes sense. I think it's okay. Yeah, I think it's fine. And then we can give this the same material, the wall material, since it's the same as the other stuff. But it has this little like granite foot on the bottom, and we can kind of just attach it here. Is that too big? No, that's fine. There's no, I mean, we can make it maybe like this. Yeah. Shrink it in here. And maybe call it, need to make a new material, concrete sign. So we have that here. For this guy, we need a couple of them. We actually need to have one here. Is it too thick? It's a tad too thick. Again, it's about proportions. It's about these really learning about how these things fit together. Where does this guy go? Let's see. It goes 1, 2. It goes in the middle. So that is here. And then we have another little guy that goes kind of here. So we can take this now as the kind of the pavement. To lift this woman up a bit. Or you can use whatever scale character. You can use a cube that is 1.8 meters high, 6 foot high, to have that as your scale model, or whatever free character. Or you can buy some scans or whatever you want to use. That doesn't really matter, as long as it represents the size of a human. So Cool, we have this one here now. And the rest of it, I don't really like. We can really just make a big cube. See how that fits in here. Make it flush. And then what we can do is make kind of a cut here. Do it like this, and then to kind of mirror the other reference I had, where we could look around the corner of that building. So we still need, of course, the shutters and other stuff. There's also this stone part here. Let me grab that from here. Separate it again. Maybe I want to push it in a little bit. Who knows? Well, chances are this is going to be everywhere, so I can just extend it through for the ground. And the building looks a bit fatter than this guy here. It's a question whether that really bothers me, or I think it's kind of the essence of it is there. So it's a question if that bothers you, or if you want to make these guys a bit higher, right? So we can, for example, grab all of these and just make them a bit taller. Let me do it like this. But that's really up to you. Okay, I have this guy here. Maybe, so there's something in the roof, but I don't know if that's too important. It's really going to be kind of looks like this, I feel. I don't know how it sits here. It's like just kind of, okay, I have this camera. Is this what I'm going to see? Maybe it's too much, but I mean, it doesn't, this is not making or breaking the design. It's kind of like this. There's I don't know, there's other stuff on top of here. Up to you if you want to add that or not. So that is that building. Let's have a look at the other one. So let's get into the second building. I have pulled up some images here because this is going to be a bit of a combination of maybe this one here and parts of this. I don't know. We'll see. So we'll probably do something very similar. So I'll just extend the road here. We will also need some kind of base, but I kind of want to thinking what I can do down here. For this one, I need kind of a, if you go back to the other one here, it has this frame in the bottom, which is kind of a separate part. Let's try to make that. I'm just going to steal this guy here. In terms of width, I mean, we can do something similar. So let's move. Actually, no, I'll leave this as a base plate. I need character again. It's easier if it's just right in front of me. I'll move this one up, maybe a bit thicker to the height. Yeah. So I'll select these two. Extrude these down. Okay, so this looks about okay. It's kind of like the entrance. I'm not too concerned again about of all the interior that's going on here. That's part of another lesson. This is more like the exterior. A lesson about the exterior. Otherwise, if you try to tackle too many things at the same time, then I'll never get things done. So I'll take this part, separate it out. Kind of push it in. What we can do here is introduce a tiny bit of a gap. Where these two meet. That could look nice. We push it in a bit. Around this much. And then I mean there's different parts here. So we have the wood. We have the glass door. We have this part that kind of stands out a bit, but this much. And then we can worry about that later. So it's a new material. It's kind of called wood. This could maybe also be concrete or something. And this would be front and back would be glass. Let's assign that. This one maybe we need a new one. Also, again, called pavement. And same here. Oh no, I didn't want to make a new one. Okay. Save. So now we have this kind of frame here. And put something on top. Actually, I want to, well, we'll probably change it a bit, but if we kind of play around with this one a bit, I want to kind of bring in a bit of that feel here in the bottom, these different plates. Kind of indicating that there's a demarcation between the pavement and where the building starts. So maybe something very low here. I need to bring this down a bit. So, oh no, that was the wrong button. Actually, maybe we want to do it in a different way. Let's do these separately. Because I want to introduce a bit of a different rhythm, it doesn't necessarily need to be the same. So maybe we have these guys, maybe like, so if we add an array to this one in the right direction and give it a bit of a gap again, then that's okay if it doesn't match exactly. We also do the same here. We add another array, but it has slightly different rhythm. That's also good. It's floating a bit in the air, is it? We don't want that. We just want it to be slightly above, so it's a bit of a step up. And it's something like that. It just doesn't have to be something very dramatically ornate. So let's build the stuff on top here, and I'm kind of wanted to take note of the size of the cubes here. So if you make a new cube for the glass, how big does this guy need to be? It needs to be just a, I mean, it doesn't really matter, but there's something about it being in a comfortable size for a human to stand next to it. So we kind of want to, this seems about right. So the photo is not that great, but we can kind of see a little bit of what's going on here. So I wanted to, let's see what we can do. I think I want to push it a little bit inside, and you have to use a bit of your imagination. If you can't find the exact thing from the reference, like detailed pictures, close-ups or whatever, you kind of have to make it up. So we'll try to see what we can do here. Making it up. So I just wanted to make it very round, and we can also make it round here. I think I kind of want it like this, and then maybe we can do it like this, and maybe even a bit like this. And let's have it smooth. Kind of get a better idea. And, I think this could be okay. It's going to get some interesting refraction here. Maybe I want to catch this one inside here. Push it a little bit here. Could be interesting. So we need to, I mean, this is supposed to be, it's a different kind of glass to the other glass. So we need to give it a new name, glass cube. And I want to give it like a metal frame, maybe. So let's see. Bloody hell, I can't. Okay, cool. So let's call this frame, assign it. Okay. Now we need to duplicate this guy. Okay, let's move him. Let's kind of move him here. Okay. And then we put this guy in array, same way as before. That one was wrong. Okay, in the opposite direction. Minus, okay. It's gonna be a lot of cubes. It's gonna be okay in terms of distance. Yeah, I think so. Oh, almost perfect. Let's maybe do one less and then let's make this guy a bit bigger so we can match it. I think this should be fine. Okay, let's go up. Another array top. Can use the same value since it's, oh, that was wrong. Since it's the cube, and we'll make it really big. So we kind of, I mean, we can take inspiration from how tall this guy is. But it's not square, I think. Or maybe it is square. Can try how it looks when we make it square. That's interesting. So let's leave it at that. That's cool. And I kind of want to, I mean, we want to, maybe I'll use this guy to build a wall here. It's a bit too thick. Let's make it a bit thinner. Let's close it off. Okay. Maybe let's make it a bit lower. So I still want to put something on top there, but not dramatically thick. Okay. So I can kind of, with my principles, with my ideas that I established before, I can kind of quickly build something new. This guy, I want to get rid of this. Oh no. I didn't want to do that. I'm gonna die on me now. Okay. I can fix it in a second. So let's separate these guys out. But I don't want, actually it's fine. I can just, I have minus 1.01. So, and this one also 27. But this needs to be also here minus 1.01 because I want to kind of show you what I want to do, like this kind of bottom thing here. I can't really tell what it is. There's too much compression, but I kind of get an idea of, I think, how I want to do that. Get rid of this part. Get rid of this part. And then make it flat as Z0 and kind of put that here. Maybe even, I think I need to erase part of it. So if we get rid of this part here. I'm always pressing the Windows key, by the way, because I'm very much used to Mac. So don't worry about that. Okay. That kind of looks like what I'm after. To make sure to turn on this wireframe mode to grab all the thingies. Okay, so we're almost there. Kind of move it in a little bit. Maybe we have something like that, and then we can maybe steal ourselves this one, make it a bit taller, move it back. So just so we have something in the back here. Otherwise there would be a hole. Maybe even a bit further back. Okay. Push it out a little bit. Okay, so now it kind of has something to limit it behind. So there's gonna be, we want to put a tree back there, but I don't necessarily know if we need to get a regular tree or if we can just take a cutout tree. We'll see about that. So here I just want to build some really quick, some stories, and just so we have a little bit of background here, and we probably also need a back wall, which we need to do really quickly here. And let's move this up. Oops. Rotate it. Doesn't matter what it is, really. Let's just make it. Because we have to kind of block the light from coming in the back, because we're going to make it out of glass. And it's going to be translucent, so for the top we kind of, let me steal this one. And make it a bit bigger so it really fills out the top. Make it a bit flatter, it's too high. Maybe a bit to the front. Okay. Oh, there's still. Okay. So, and what we can do now is I want to push this. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't matter. You can just make up your own roof. I just want to have that nice skylight that comes in. So I just want to delete that here. Maybe there's not enough space for the tree to stand in front, so we'll push this back. Probably want to add some lights in there as well. This is a bit too. Okay. So now we kind of have the base geometry, I think, of this space. So now there's still plenty of things left to do. I think first and foremost we want to bring in some textures, some materials, and make this thing look a bit shinier. So for that I'm going to jump into a different file where I have some of the things already prepared, because I mean they're mostly just very basic steps, but I want to show you how I broke all of this stuff down. So let's magically switch the file, and then I'll be back there, right back with you. So let's get into materials a little bit. So for the setup here, I have just HDRI. That's it. And let's have a quick look what I did with the materials. So if you turn this on, you can use Eevee, you can use cycles, whatever. This is not really, it's up to you how you want to do it. Since there's a lot of glass involved, I want to use cycles because it looks better without having to fake it too much. Let's give this a second to load. And I have a variety of materials here. Some are just built together to emulate the ones that we saw in the reference, and some of them I used some textures I purchased because it makes a lot more sense, I think, to buy some good stuff for architectural stuff like wood and concrete and all these kind of things, which some high resolution, well done textures will definitely pay off in the long run, since you're going to use those base materials again and again and again. So this hopefully is loading in a second or so. We're going to go through all of this. Now it's updating the images, updating the lights. Okay, so here we are. You can see there's a HDRI, and it's giving us all the lighting and shadows and everything. The ground really is very, very simple. The ground is very simple indeed. So there's just a concrete texture I purchased, and actually the same concrete texture, just with a different gamma attached and a different scaling, but it's the same texture. I did, there's an asphalt texture on this one. Again, just very simply mapped on here. There's nothing special. For this guy, I did like a white texture with a noise texture thrown into the alpha. So you can see how the noise will change based on the color ramp that feeds into the alpha. I don't know. You can do that any which way. That's not really important. So in terms of the building, you can see that I used the image as planes to, for example, grab one of the, like I would usually do it this way. I'm just going to show you quickly. I don't need an alpha. And where did it go? Here it went. So we can also switch to Eevee quickly, so I can show it to you more easily. I usually, if I cut this stuff up, I usually work on Eevee, since it's simpler, or let's say faster. So I mean, it's the usual method that I've shown before in the subway tutorial, and then you can introduce, like if I want to just cut out this part here, I would introduce these edge loops, and then cut out all the rest. And then I just have this one, then I can rotate it here. And bring it into here. And if I want to, so now it looks like this. Now it has a different front, and that's exactly how I would do that, and that's how I did this guy here, the gate, and this is how I did the barber. I mean, it doesn't really fit here, but it's on the distance it's fine. As for here we have simple concrete that is driving the mix between two different gray tones. So if you play around with this, you get a different kind of style. As for the white material, oh, this is the glass. let's switch to the, I called it off-white because it is not really white. So I have the same kind of concrete texture here. It's just really a really shitty image. It's this one. It's non-tiling, but it doesn't matter. It's just again driving the factor between itself and kind of like an off-white kind of tone. So you see that we're getting a bit of a dirt here and there. And you can kind of see how there's more abrasion at the bottom and the top, which is kind of exactly what we want. It has no roughness, really nothing to speak of, no reflectivity, which gives it a nice kind of gives it a nice contrast to the very reflective windows. And then we have like a very simple kind of reflective gray there, just to emulate what we've seen in the picture. And then the what is it? The glass has a bit of dirt on it. I mean, it's really grimy. It looked better in cycles, of course. So with the second building, so I'm going to enable here. This is actually, if you look at it from the side, it's obviously the same. If you look at it from here, it's not so obvious that it's the same, which is good. So we'll see what we get away with. Here's some wooden planks that are just kind of looking nice, and it's not the most polished wood. Maybe a more polished parquet kind of thing would be better, but I wanted to drive home the feeling of something that you can touch, that you can feel, that you can understand the feeling of it, the touch of it, a very tangible like rock and like granite, concrete, tiles, wood. And then here for the glass we did, you can kind of see how it has a bump that feeds into the normal of the glass shader. And well, who knew it? I'm using the same exact texture that I used for the concrete, and you see nobody can tell the difference. It looks like a nice random kind of glass that gives me the right kind of feeling that I'm looking for. Here's our tree, by the way. So if you look at the tree, let me copy it out. It is actually a tree from a photo bash pack, a masked tree, and I just feed the alpha. Because it's a masked photo, you can just feed the alpha into the alpha of the texture, and it cuts it out for you nicely. So again, it's not gonna, like from this angle, of course it doesn't hold up, but from straight on it's fine. And further away, definitely. And if we have it behind this glass, you really can't tell the difference. So if we turn on, now we can't see it, but if we turn on cycles, it will look a lot better. So you can see now we have, I added some lights here, there's some light strips, so we can get a bit of because we're going to look at it straight on, and we need to kind of find a way to like give it perspective, right? Give it perspective give it depth. And one way to achieve that is just by showing a little bit of the interior, and a cheap way of that is just showing the lighting. So you can kind of see here that there's some stories. I mean, you can't really tell what's further away, but you can tell that there's a tree behind, and if it's just a picture or not, I mean, in this case, it's really you have to look really closely, I think, to get that idea. And here we have all the lights. I mean, it looks empty. That's true. We're gonna have to fake it a little bit later, but you really get the materials look a lot nicer in with everything in the shadow and in cycles, I have to say. So you see that with even, I think, very simple geometry and the right kind of materials and proportions, you can get, I think, very good results. And it looks a lot more natural, a lot more pleasing to the eye than a lot of really crazy ins and outs and crazy difficult. I mean, of course, there's going to be different different briefs, different requirements for different buildings. But I think the same kind of rules apply for everything. And I think if you are tasked to do a lot of architecture for any given job, and you're not familiar with it, I think it's good to learn the basics of this kind of stuff by, call it master studies, call it whatever you want, practice. But I think the same way that you would paint, that you would try to emulate a painting from a famous painter, I think the same way it should be done to learn the architecture and ideally in 3D, I think, learn the architecture of famous architects, deconstruct the Frank Lloyd Wright or Mies van der Rohe or whatever, that you can really learn what they did with space and materials and how it feels and how it would feel like going through with a camera. And then you also get really a better appreciation of maybe how to work together with set designers and production designers, with people who build sets on movies. If you can give better ideas in terms of how you understand spaces and how you understand which camera works best in which space and what's possible and what's not, I think that's a very, very valuable skill to have. So again, this was a very simple, straightforward task, I think, on the technical side. This is really more about the thought behind it. But of course, we're not done yet. So we want to just kind of polish these guys up a little bit because, if you have these, great. But then I think we really need to do a better job in presenting this stuff and to really make them shine. And that's exactly what we're going to do for the last part. So for exercise number 2, let's start building whatever you have chosen, the design you've chosen. Start building it in 3D, break it down, keep it simple and really try to understand scale and proportions and how everything fits together. Don't go crazy, I think, with the amount of details. You can focus maybe on the facade really more than anything, rather than like really thinking about the back door and all the interior and everything. You can get more and more detailed as you progress further in your studies. Again, execute with the aim to learn and understand. Really make conscious decisions to really note down what you have done and why. Again, space, proportions, materials, details. And also note how light interacts with your facades, with your materials, with your spaces, and take note of that. So now that we finished our design, we want to just play a little bit with the integration of everything and making it presentable. Integration, presentation, polish, whatever you want to call it. Basically, so just that our stuff just doesn't look so just boring and it's just a block. We're also going to choose our cameras and everything. So, I've prepared everything and I will go through it to show you exactly what I thought would be useful. So, I categorized everything here, of course, in building 1 and 2, the streets. So thinking kind of like, okay, what do I have in my camera? So if I go through my cameras that I've already selected, and kind of the standard camera that I want to go with is kind of like, this is probably the main shot I'm going to use. And there's a bit of a consideration of like, okay, how much do I need to build? How much would be a waste? How much do you not see? I will take some close-ups and some funky angles, but there's still the main shot that I kind of want to consider. So if I go out of the camera, let's see. The pavement, of course, is part of the consideration, right? Because that's quite important here. And there's so many different treatments of what you can possibly do. And I've kind of added a couple of things here just to, there is an endless amount of stuff you can add. I think it's just about finding out how much do you need to do to get away with that it looks real. Because you can put so much detail in there with all the little bits of dirt and I don't know, garbage and rain gutters and different materials and wet or dry or whatever, right? So it all kind of it becomes an endless amount of stuff. But in the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, like, okay, so what am I trying to sell with this shot? What's going to be helpful to the image, and what am I really going to see in the frame? So, I mean, we can kind of see that this part here, there's really, like, it takes up so few pixels in the frame. So maybe it's better to spend an appropriate amount of time on that rather than way too much. And then we have these like ubiquitous kind of strips here, the white markings and everything and so forth, right? So, but what we should spend more time probably on is, of course, the materials and the main buildings, and then also maybe some props here and there that will really live in this space up. So I've taken a few things here, and they're all kind of probably fairly obvious, but nevertheless you should put them in. So one, of course, is people. We have not only for scale, but also just to make the place look a bit busier, right? If you want to do that with 3D scanned models you have bought, or maybe you want to use the 2D cutout models you have bought, or maybe just people from images you can cut out or whatever, or you can bash in. But there needs to be a bit of life, a bit of like the average kind of life, so we can feel like people are just going about their business in these shots, right? I would always make sure to take extra care of these kind of things, because in a lot of architectural renderings, of course, there's no time to do this kind of stuff, but to always make sure that the perspective is right, the lighting is right, and that it looks realistic, and that's kind of where we can come in and really take it up a notch. Also, maybe put like you can also put vehicles in there if you have some. That would always be nice, of course, if it makes sense, right? If you have like a house with like a residential building with a garage or whatever, like if you put some nice cars in, that's always helpful. There's some shadow casters, but they are just in the background, of course, to manipulate the light shafts coming in. Then we have also other stuff like I have some additional trees here, but these trees are more like for casting shadows. And one of the things I think that I want to mention that makes things quite a bit different from, I think, architectural renderings, and again, things we can learn from, is that kind of in tune with what I mentioned before about learning from buildings and learning from scenes that don't obviously look like they have been like crazily designed, over-designed, but just look natural, like part of the building that we could see around the corner with all the pipes. With all the pipes and garbage around the corner. So it'll be nice to bring not grime and dirt, but just a bit of a flair of like it being used. And again, that's to notice which kind of items work well and tell that story is going to be really conducive to you putting this kind of feel and ideas into your sci-fi or fantasy concepts. So the same way we have to put it in here, or we should put it in here. Architectural renderings usually make the place look really pristine, really clean. They even go as far as to like completely fake the surrounding environment. Like if there's like a new skyscraper or like a new house, like a condominium or whatever, and they put it in the middle of the city, and you know like that there's like tons of big buildings around it, and then suddenly there's like this big ocean of green, like this. It's like in a lush forest, and you know that's not true, right? But that's how they always make it look like. But I mean, for us, we want to kind of give a realistic outlook, not a utopia here. So we have these fake trees. We have, I don't know, I love electricity poles, so I'll put them everywhere. Especially, it makes sense because in Japan, the electricity poles are mostly above ground, the lines, and so they really are necessary to complete the kind of image of a Japanese street. We also have props, of course. So for the props, I have a couple of things that are motivated by various reasons. So of course, there's I have like little poles here. I was too lazy to really model an entire railing or something, which would probably look nicer, but there you go. To kind of show depth, right? So we have one here, we have one in the back. We can't see it with the car currently. But they can show depth. They can give us like things in front of each other, right? So we have kind of these poles in front of the car, and then there's another pole behind the car. That helps. There's also I added a few like aircon units back here. I added my lovely vending machines because you need them everywhere. So these I did for free. You can download them on through a YouTube link and learn on YouTube how to make them for free. I did a few pipes in here, so I just added a few pipes here on the that's really quickly done with the drawing tool, with the line tool. And then here I cut out some stuff from a building scan. So in order to populate the surrounding buildings, there's a couple of things you can do. So I have purchased these 3D scan models from Sketchfab. So somebody went around with a camera and took pictures of these buildings and scanned them in, and they're absolutely fabulous. And here, this kind of in-between piece scan that is completely unfinished, I kind of took that, I cut that piece out here, and I put it in between the buildings here, so that gives it a very natural kind of in-between buildings feeling. But of course, there's another scan, and there's another scan here. You don't need to, like, I have even like a lot more scans in here. You don't necessarily need to buy these scans, but you can also do your own stuff again by the same image as planes import method I just showed. And because if they are off to the side of your image, then like, and they're kind of like, even at this distance, like you can't really tell that it's just a photo. I mean, it doesn't really have any geometry. I mean, I pushed it in here a little bit, so you get a little bit of like depth, as you can see here, and like a bit of a shadow cast, but that's really it. And if you even the tree here looks like, well, you can get away with a lot, I think. As long as some elements in your scene have depth and 3D, I think you can get away with a lot of other ones that don't have it. You have to look really closely to really know, like, oh, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. So all these elements here kind of really quickly add to a feeling that this feels realistic. This feels like it's not photoreal. Like, it's not like, oh my gosh, this, like, I couldn't believe this is 3D kind of idea, right? But we're getting in that direction. There's again, it's about the subtleties. It's about not doing something super crazy. It's about respecting the proportions, respecting the simplicity of it, respecting materials and the kind of everyday things you see on the street, and you should take really note of those, right? You should notice them, and you don't need crazy geometry. You don't need like crazy this, crazy that, or like an insane amount of details. Like I showed you, this has very, very simple geometry, and it's just about the materials and the kind of proportions and everything, and it will feel fairly realistic. And there you can really take note of all the different things that make up a building and that make up a scene. And of course it's empty here, right? Of course there's like glitches and everything here, but for the most part we can get away with a lot. So we have all these elements here, and if you look at the kind of stuff, of course there's things to fix, right? And we need to still go the extra mile in fixing all these 3D glitches. And I mean, you can noodle around in 3D as long as you want, and you gotta ask yourself if that is worth it, depending on the time you have, depending on what you want to achieve. So that's really up to you. So I've kind of stopped here with my 3D journey and did a couple of shots. So I did some that are fairly standard, where you can really appreciate the building from just like an average kind of like walking past kind of point of view on the ground. The kind of viewpoint from somebody on the ground who would experience it is very important to include in whatever delivery you're making to the client, so that they can really understand what is it like for somebody on the street. Like if you just walk around with a camera, like what would you see kind of feeling. But then in addition, of course, I always like to do some funky stuff. So getting some really dynamic angles just as a kind of bonus in there. I think I need to change the lens for this one. And just some extra stuff where you can appreciate some of the details, some of the ideas, to really drive home the point of like, okay, this is the design I want to propose. Some funny ones. I mean, these are not like necessarily recommended to send to the client, but just kind of have a little bit of fun with your design and propose some interesting camera angles, because more can always help you get extra brownie points with a client. So I rendered out all of these, and we'll do a quick jump into Photoshop to just appreciate some of the last little details I put in and clean up, and then we can wrap up this lesson. So here we are in Photoshop now. I brought all the renders in. I really don't have many different layers here or crazy things to show. I usually render out the kind of like a whatever clown pass, random color pass, to get quick selections, to make quick selections possible without having to cut out anything. But that's like the same thing I've shown many times already. So I really don't do much here. I usually clean up a lot of little things, like, I don't know, geometry that doesn't connect. I try to get rid of any kind of like glitchiness, any kind of things that don't look right. I take an extra step to like really clean up the images, to really go the extra mile, to make sure that everything is in perspective. I mean, with a lot of 3D stuff, you feel like, oh, I don't need to take care of the perspective lines and everything, but you really do need to. It's very, especially in the architectural field, I think it's very obvious if things are not lining up, if it's obviously skewed wrongly in perspective. I think maybe that's something we artists notice more than anyone, but I think then it's even more important for us to take care of it, so it doesn't look unprofessional. You could, of course, add more details to these walls here and really make it even more detailed. You can add all these little things, all these little pieces of dirt and unevenness and broken up this and that. You can add all of these, of course, right? You can take it infinitely further if you wanted to. But of course, in the end of the day, you have to like, okay, do I have enough time? Is that the most important thing that I should be spending my time on, or is there other things that will have a bigger impact on the overall image? Is it going to be better if I do one more image, or is it better if I polish less images? All these kind of questions are going through your head while you keep the deadline in mind. So one thing I did is kind of add like a fake reflection into the building, because I think it's very hard to fake these reflections in Blender in 3D. So I usually just put them in 2D to kind of have a hybrid between what I caught in camera, so to speak, and kind of reflections from the other side of the road. I should probably add something into this glass door as well, but it kind of, again, it communicates its glass, and that's all that's necessary for now. I did a couple of more shots here. And just add like little unevenness, little chipped off pieces here and there. Make sure that there's nothing like obvious like standing out. The cables look too clean for me. Maybe that's something I want to fix. The closer we get, the more we need to really take care of any kind of weird, glitchy 3D, or we want to even like dirty up certain amounts of 3D. And yeah, again, for reflections, maybe go the extra mile, add something. We kind of have to destroy a little bit of the clean look that the 3D gives us to make it look more natural. And I think that always helps. If we just add a little, like it doesn't have to be too much, but just a tad of the signs of use are always going to be, I think, very useful. It doesn't have to be crazy over the top everywhere, but just hints of it here and there. I mean, now that I'm looking at these images again, I can see so many areas where I want to touch it up even further. But of course, there's never enough time to do everything. And that's just the last image here. So there's still a bit of color grading I like to do. I usually do that in Lightroom. I've showed that before as well, and that's not really what this episode is about, this tutorial. Just the usual things, right? Like color tone balance, a bit of just kind of make it all come together with like film grain and distortion of the lens, and just all these little things that can help you just have everything sit together more nicely. I mean, it also depends on the kind of presentation you're going for. If it's especially cinematic or you want to make it look a bit different, it all depends on that, right? So not always film grain is the right solution for everything. But so again, this was a bit of a journey into the field of architecture and what we can learn from it. And this will definitely continue in the coming episodes, where I'm going to go into different kinds of architecture and different kinds of ways to not only learn from it, but also apply the knowledge that we have gathered and that you hopefully will continue to gather while you do these studies, and maybe do even more and more elaborate studies. Because I mean, I think in terms of how we learn from different kinds of architecture, it's there's a lot more to be discovered. So this is really just a focus on realistic architecture, on contemporary stuff, and what we just can learn from all the things that are just around us. And that we don't usually take note of. So it would be great if I see a lot of you guys trying out these little studies, and it would be great to see different kinds of buildings from all around the world, from the cities you live in, and what we can build here together, and then maybe we can put all these buildings together in the end, and build ourselves a little international city. Anyways, I'm brabbling too much here, so thanks for watching again, and see you guys in the next one. So of course, for the last exercise, not to forget, exactly do what I just showed you. Think about the presentation of your building. Think about where it sits within the larger city or the larger environment. It can be very natural. It can be a farmhouse. I don't know, whatever you guys are building, right? It doesn't need to be in next to buildings, crammed into tiny spaces. It doesn't all have to be Hong Kong or some futuristic slum. It can also just be, like I said, a farmhouse in a nice environment. But think about integration. Think about the environment around it, whether it's urban or natural. Give it life with people, with props. Think about how people use it and where would be areas of use and abuse. Refine and finalize textures, lighting, and mood according to I don't know, your taste or your reference that you collected and the kind of feeling you want to communicate, and really go the extra mile to make sure everything is coming together nicely, and it's just not like disparate elements, but make it nice and make it all sit together and get a feel for that architecture is not something that is sitting by itself, but is a communication and a kind of a if you so want like a visual discussion between spaces, between buildings, between how it sits with other buildings in an environment and the people who use it. So long story short, have fun with this one, and thank you again. Bye.